These are my AI rigs. One of them was left outside on the street for weeks, through the rain, the wind, and the sun, and nobody wanted it. The other hadn't booted in years. Today, they're both running large language models, and I'm going to show you how that happened and why it matters. So, let me take you back. My dad bought the Alienware Aurora R4 in 2013 to play World of Warcraft. He loved the machine, but over time it started failing. There were multiple Alienware technician visits with no real diagnosis, and eventually it just stopped booting altogether. So it went into storage in our basement, along with his older machine, a Dell Dimension E520 from 2007, which had been sitting there for even longer. So years passed, and I'd occasionally pull the Aurora out, read through the technical manuals, dig into the BIOS settings, try to figure out what was wrong. But nothing worked, and it went back into storage once I had enough. Then, one day, and I could tell you the feeling exactly, something changed in how I was thinking about technology. I kept reading about how the big AI companies were monetizing user data, sharing information, building infrastructure that treats your curiosity and your searches as a product to be sold. That didn't really sit well with me, and I started wondering, what if I didn't have to rely on any of that? What if I could run AI on my own hardware with my own data in my own home? So that question sent me back into the basement. So I started scavenging. I was looking for old hard drives, RAM sticks, power cables, graphics cards, and whatever I needed. I tried different Linux distributions on both machines. Arch Linux was too terminal heavy for me, so I chose something with a graphical interface. Zorin was the next thing I tried, and that was okay, but it still didn't feel right. And then eventually I moved to Debian Trixie on the Aurora, and that was well organized, similar to Mac OS, but still, again, not my favorite. Eventually, I moved everything on the Aurora to Pop OS for its stability and driver availability and compatibility. On the other hand, the E520 is now running a lightweight version of Ubuntu 24, so it doesn't eat too many resources. So the moment the Aurora finally booted, I was in the basement, and it was late at night, and I was ecstatic. And my dad was really ecstatic as well, because I couldn't believe that after so many trials of trying to download Windows 11, Windows 10, going back down to even Windows 7, it decided actually to post on Linux. And it was ready to work. The E520, on the other hand, is a bit of a different story. At some point, we left it outside on the street in the front yard. It had moved down the block, so people were actually taking it and moving it. But for weeks, it still stayed on the block under the rain, the sun, the wind, and nobody took it. Until one day, I was just passing by, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to take this back inside and see what I could do. And I pressed the power button, and lo and behold, it turned on. The only thing that was taken from it, though, was the RAM. So I needed to source that. So one of the first things I bought was about 6 gigabytes of DDR2 RAM through eBay. And the E520 started posting again. On the other hand, when I tried running AI models on it, lightweight AI models, and I tried running benchmarks just to see what this machine was capable of, it would constantly shut down with no warning, no error, except for in the BIOS menu where it said it was some sort of a thermal overload. So the temperature range must have gone way beyond what the computer was safe with. So eventually I looked closer at the motherboard and I noticed bulging capacitors, 3 of them in fact. And for anyone who doesn't know, a capacitor is a small component that stores and regulates electrical charge on a motherboard. So when they fail, they bulge at the top and they can no longer do their job. So under load, when the machine needed stable power delivery, those capacitors were failing and the machine was shutting down to protect the rest of the hardware. The standard advice would have been to bin it. In fact, many different AIs, online AIs like ChatGPT and Perplexity suggested that I do just that. And I was told to buy a new machine for AI workloads. But I was pretty determined. I was pretty stubborn, and I wanted to get this working. So I remembered that I had a donor computer, not really a donor computer, just another computer sitting in a different house. And I decided to see if I could scavenge some parts out of it. And I was able to match the capacitor specs that were on the E520 from this Acer computer, and I decided to solder them onto the E520. And it's the kind of thing that most people never really attempt on hardware. This old, I'm sure consumers would rather buy something new, but I decided to do just that. And I was super impressed because it worked. The E520 hadn't shut down under load since. So that brings me on to the next step for me. So once they were stable, both machines, the Aurora and the E520, I started upgrading. Not with new parts because of affordability concerns. So I just turned to used components because there were many of them. They appeared to be working. That's what they had in their descriptions on eBay and places like Newegg. And I thought, let's see how this goes. So the Aurora got an Intel i7 4930K, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and an SSD. And the crown jewel was an RTX 3090 with 24 gigabytes of VRAM. So that card was really capable. And it was capable of running really large language models and had no business running on a 2012 machine. The E520, on the other hand, got an Intel Core 2 Quad Q6700, 6 gigabytes of DDR2 RAM, and a GTX 1050 Ti with 4 gigabytes of VRAM. I also added dual-port gigabit Ethernet and an SSD and a USB 3 expansion card, just so that everything could kind of be tolerable. And yeah, it all worked, and it works still. I was really impressed that a 2007 machine, in this case, fully upgraded, running local AI models in 2016, could even manage this. And there was still more to come. There's still some headroom with the E520. I'm thinking of a PSU upgrade and a RTX 3060 to push it even further. And that's for a later project. So, the different AI tools. I used ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Copilot, and eventually Claude. A lot of those tools guided me through the processes that I wanted to get down and finish. So I want to be also honest about that because it might seem a bit contradictory for a local AI channel to talk about using cloud AI. But here's the thing. these tools help me understand how AI works, how to implement it locally, and sometimes showed me exactly how wrong they can be. So this accelerated my learning and inspired me to build something that doesn't depend on them. So that's not really a contradiction, that's the point. I'm not a professional coder or a hardware engineer. I'm someone who was curious, persistent, and willing to fail 100 times, despite the headaches. And AI helped me do that faster. So now I'm building something that runs without the cloud. So here's what I learned on all of this. Top-of-the-line technology is genuinely not worth it. Not when patience, persistence, trial and error can get you there 90% of the way. With hardware that costs a fraction of the price. You know, the hurdles are real. The software and hardware incompatibilities with old instruction sets and architectures are frustrating, but they're solvable. And solving them teaches you things that buying a new machine never would. More importantly, and this is something I feel strongly about, owning your own compute means owning your own data. Nobody is monetizing what I run on these machines. Nobody's selling my queries to a third party. These models run here on my devices. My data's there, and the results are mine. So that's what Matek Builds is all about. Not the fanciest hardware, not the easiest path, just what's actually possible when you refuse to accept the limitations you're handed. On the next video, I'm going to show you how the full remote workflow works for me. How I control these machines in New York from my apartment here in Oslo using Tailscale and NoMachine. And that includes features that I'll talk about like Wake on LAN, so I could power them on remotely. If that sounds impossible, stay tuned, subscribe and join the Field Notes newsletter. The links are in the description, and I'll see you next time.